Hello guys, welcome to Monitoring and Evaluation Made Simple. I'm your host, Coach Alexander. I am so glad you've come to this impact evaluation training for July 2020. I'm so excited because right now I have 2 free gifts to give to you. Alright, in case you didn't know about this, I just released 2 very important freebies, and this is the first book called Learn Logical Framework Analysis. This is a step-by-step guide on how to do the LFA in project implementation. Then I have the 2020 Monitoring and Evaluation Beginner's Guide. I want you, after the video, to download these books because they are totally free. They're going to help you boost in your career in monitoring and evaluation. So the link is in the description. Then also I have the match. This is one of my favorite courses that I've developed. It's doing very well on Udemy. It's called Impact Evaluation. Okay, so now the fundamentals of impact evaluation, you are here for this training today, but it will just be the basics. But this link I've given to you is an in-depth understanding of how this impact evaluation is done. So I want you at the end of this short training to consider enrolling for this course. It has so far gotten 4.5 stars out of 5, and then I have a good discount for you, and you'll find the coupon code in the link in the description. So there's another thing I wanted to tell you is that this video is quite long. Okay, so as usual I have timestamps, so if you don't want to listen to this part of the video, just click the timestamp and go to the part where you want to get information on. Okay, so without wasting any much time, let's get started straight away. So the outline of this training is, first of all, we're going to talk about what is impact evaluation. All right. Then secondly, why conduct impact evaluation? There always needs to be a justification why we do these impact evaluation studies. Then one of the most interesting parts of this video is the methods of conducting impact evaluation. What exactly are the methods? Then finally, we're going to look at ensuring quality in impact evaluation. How do you ensure that indeed the final output, the final product of this is of high quality? So like I said, this is a long video. Please look at the timestamps in the description if you want to this part and go to the next section of the video. Okay, so what is impact evaluation? Okay, think of it this way. Imagine that you embark on a project, a personal project. You say to yourself, I want to build a house, okay? And this house I want to build is supposed to generate me money because you give out that house on rent and it will be giving you that income, okay? So at the end of the day, the reason why you've built that house is because you want to improve your income portfolio. And the reason you want to improve your impact portfolio is because you also want to improve your living standards. You also want to have access to maybe better medical care. You want to have access to better living, more holidays with the family, things like that. So you ultimately have those goals set for yourself. Now, in order to determine whether those goals have actually been achieved, because let's say this project takes 5 years, building the house takes 5 years, and for you to recover your money, it may take another 5 years, okay? It's just a hypothetical example. And for you to actually see the product, the results of your hard-earned labor, it may take after 10 years. Okay, so the 5 years, it's after 10 years because the first 5 years is building, the next 5 years is recovery of your money, then after the 10 years, it's the money you then realize. So now, in order to see whether this has actually taken place, you need to undertake a study called an impact evaluation. So impact is what you see after the 10 years. All right. And this refers to the positive and negative, intended and unintended, direct and indirect, primary and secondary effects produced by an intervention. So I know this definition is a mouthful because, when it comes to impact, it is so many things that determine whether your project will improve or whether it hasn't. There are so many factors. And you see, impact can be positive or negative. And when they say intended and unintended, here they're simply saying that you may be implementing a project with the goal of having more money in your pocket, but you then realize that there may be unintended results that you didn't expect to see. Let's say you build the house, and then your expectation is that more money will come in your pocket. But then you then realize that actually another result that you didn't actually intend to see is that perhaps more people are going to start building in your location. And therefore, because more people will start building in that location, since they've seen that there is an opportunity, there is a business opportunity, that will mean that in that community, there will be more economic activity simply because you built your house. You see, so that is an unintended result of building the house. You've got those keywords there, direct and indirect. What do they mean? It means that, for instance, what is the direct effect of building that house? It's improved incomes, not so. But there could be an indirect impact. Okay, it could be that when you build this house, you're actually creating jobs for people. That's the indirect impact, because when you build that house, you are spending money, and then those in construction have found a job with you, and that money you are paying them is bettering their livelihoods in their own families. So do you see impact? It is not just about you at the end of the day. It is also the people around you that actually can be impacted by whatever you do. It's even the same with our lives, our personal lives. Whatever you do today, you may think that it's impacting you in a negative or positive way, but actually, the people around you are also being affected by what you do, by what you say, things like that. So you have to understand that impact evaluation is systematic and it's empirical. It is evidence, it is an evidence-based activity. I like to think of impact evaluation as a research, because you are doing something, enormous. You're trying to do and establish what exactly is the case as a result of an intervention. What is the effects? And you see, establishing effects can be really difficult sometimes, because there are so many factors in this world that can lead to change. You may think that it's because of your project that change has happened in a certain location, but there are different projects probably being implemented in that same area. So the question you have to ask yourself is, how do I attribute my project to this change? That can prove really difficult. So there are two types of evaluations, all right? This is not just in the impact evaluation fraternity, but generally speaking, there are two types of evaluations when you're doing these project implementation activities. You've got the summative evaluation, and then you've got the formative evaluation. Let me explain further. So there is a diagram. It has been nicely summarized by, as you can see below, there are those references, okay? And I like this summary because it is what it is. It is also what I can connect with. This is exactly what is happening when you do these evaluations. So you've got the formative evaluation and the summative, all right? So this formative is mainly looking at the before the program begins, or you've got even when it's a new program, okay, that is currently being implemented. So you can see that you've got the program stage. When does this happen? Okay, when does this all happen? This formative evaluation. You've got the needs assessments. I'm sure you're familiar with the needs assessments. These assessments are done in order to determine what are the potential needs of this project. Does this project require more funding? Does it require more manpower? Things like that. Do personnel need training? So that is just one example of a formative evaluation. But did you also know that a baseline survey is a formative evaluation? Interesting, eh? Yeah, because it is ideally a baseline study is supposed to be done before the project actually starts. I've got a video on my YouTube channel that talks about baseline studies. I really want you to look up that video, nourish yourself with it, get to understand what a project baseline is. I've got a training on Udemy talking about it. All right. I want to cover a lot of information. Please take the time to look at some of the courses I am sharing on Udemy because these are very important courses. These are going to help you improve your caliber in monitoring and evaluation. So then you've got the process evaluation, okay? This evaluation basically determines the processes. As the program is running, are the activities operating as planned? Very important question. And if you come to think about it, these activities, you've got the needs assessment, you've got the process evaluation, and later I'm going to talk about the outcome evaluation, impact evaluation. All these are supposed to be running as the project is being implemented. But in my line of work, in the past 10 years, you know what I've seen, friend? I've seen that they don't actually do things the way they're supposed to be done always. Because you'd expect a needs assessment, you'd expect a process evaluation, but it's not always done. And the excuse they give is that perhaps it could be that there's no funds to do these activities. But the question I have is, shouldn't there be funds? Shouldn't it be planned at the onset? Shouldn't this be budgeted for? So it's very important to do these evaluations because it helps you determine how best you can improve the project even as it is running. Because what you want is success. Stakeholders are demanding success. You, as management, are also demanding success because if this project doesn't succeed, who is to blame? Is it not you? It definitely is. It has to be you because you were not doing things by the book. Next is the summative evaluation. So you have the established program, it has come to it's almost coming to its end, and now you want to determine whether outcomes have been achieved. Now, outcomes are the short to medium term results. Okay, these are the short to medium term results. They are like impact, but the only difference between an outcome and an impact is that impact is longer term change, but outcome is short to medium term change. So we're talking about change between a year or 3 years or even up to 5 years. But impact can only be seen even up to 10 years. You only be able to see the impact. And the reason is simple, because change takes time. All right. I like to give this example of an alcoholic. You realize that in some countries, and I think this is even a global issue, wherever there's alcohol, you're going to find sometimes that people are drunkards. They have an alcoholic problem. So now, in order for that person to conquer that alcoholic problem, it takes time. You're simply telling somebody to quit alcohol, but he can't quit just immediately. It takes time. And then another, now a more real example related to what we are discussing is when government issues a policy. Let's say the government of the republic of a country somewhere issues a new policy that more jobs should be created for the youth. Okay. And what this means, in order to have more jobs created for the youth, the government decides to lower the interest rates of borrowing so that more youths can borrow and create jobs for themselves and hire other youths to enter the business. So now, of course, when they do the lowering of the cost of borrowing to lower interest rates, people borrow more. Does that intervention, that policy will be enacted, but it will still take time to see its effect. Because let's say in year one, that policy is implemented. There's a number of other issues that come. These people are coming to borrow. What criteria do we use to lend the money? How much can we lend? When should they pay back? And after they pay back, will their businesses still be thriving the way they should? Will it be true that more people will be employed and more youths will be employed? Is it true? Well, such things take time to see, and it will only be a matter of time to see the actual results over a span of years. So I've done a lot of talking. I'm sure you get the point. Do your own reading and make your own conclusions. Okay, so now, why should it be done? Why should an impact evaluation be done? Okay, I've talked about this a lot of times. If you've been following my YouTube channel, I always talk about this, and it's not just an impact evaluation issue. It is an M&D issue. Okay, why should M&D be done? It's the same reason why evaluation should be done. We really want to justify why these funds are being used for a certain project. That is really the issue. Because if we do not justify, then why should people be spending money? And you see, most of these projects, do you know who's actually paying for these projects? It is not, if it's government projects, it's the taxpayers who are being taxed heavily, and then that money is being used for the projects. So now, in order to justify, in order to tell the people, the taxpayers, and stakeholders around that indeed your money is being used for the best intentions, you need to do an impact evaluation. And impact evaluations help inform decision making. Information is key in these things. If you don't have information, you discover that you just be shooting in the dark. It's really important to get information, and it's not just any kind of information, but it is the right information. So, what does this mean? When when it is found that the results have not been achieved according to plan, then you as a decision maker, you want to know why. Why isn't it why is it the case that things were not achieved according to plan? It also helps decide whether you need to expand the project or not. Very critical. You need to decide whether or not the project should be expanded or not. And this can only be done by measuring the successes against the failures. You gauge between the two. And then, if it's a success, you need to expand. If it's not, then maybe you need to rethink your strategy of implementation. And then also, you want to learn how you can replicate this. Okay, in cases of when you want to scale up the project, perhaps this current project you are running was a pilot, but you want to scale it up. How do you replicate it? It's all by understanding the findings in the impact evaluation study. And finally, to learn how to successfully adapt a successful intervention to suit another context. To show accountability, I talked about the taxpayers. Very important. You know, I must mention that it's not easy to pay tax, but it is a requirement because when you pay your tax, it goes to the best uses. And that's how accountability works. That's how transparency should be. When you do this project, when you do an impact evaluation, you share the findings with all concerned, who are the stakeholders in this case. And then, how is this project benefiting the community? Could it be that it's actually bringing more harm than good to the community? If that's the case, then it shouldn't be implemented. Or the harmful effects should be mitigated. So now we want to understand what questions does this evaluation seek to answer? All right, that is very important. What are the questions that it seeks to answer? The first thing is that an impact evaluation wants to understand the overall impact. All right. Remember, I talked about that example of the house. What is the overall impact of having a house built? The overall impact could be improved economic activity in that community. But the question is, how do you quantify that overall impact? It's not easy. I can tell you, I'm talking from experience. I've done evaluations before, and it's not easy. But it must be done, and it must be done the right way. So, how do you do it? Usually, involving the right people at the right time helps a lot. There are so many experts, consultants around the globe. one of the things I've seen hindering is usually when you want to get the best people to do the job, you know what they'll say? They'll say, no, it's too costly. We can't do it. Too costly. But why should cost be an issue when you want to get the best out of a project? You need to forget about the cost. Make sure that you budget these things in your budget. Make sure you prepare a good budget and justify that budget. Another thing impact evaluation tries to understand is the nature of the impacts and their distribution. So now remember I talked about on the onset that impact is quite interesting because it can be positive, negative, unintended, and intended, it's just so all over the place sometimes that it can be really confusing. So you just want to know, how is it well distributed? Has it really reached out to the targeted people? All right, to the people that you wanted to benefit from this. I talked about the example of government policy to have more youths borrowing and more youths getting employed. Did the youths really borrow? Did they really get empowered by this policy adjustment? Has there been a shift? How well distributed is this impact? Is it only the males who are getting employed, the male youths who are getting employed at the expense of females? So those are the questions you want to answer. How well empowered are these people? How much income are they generating? Is this income significant to better their living? Those are the questions. Okay. And then another question is, how is the influence of other factors on the impact? We talked about government policy change. All right. But then there are also other factors. There's inflation. How has this affected doing business for the youths? There is also cost of doing business. How has it affected the overall cost of doing business? Because if you have in a country, fuel prices are always high, commodities are always high, even if you lessen the interest rates for the youths, are you also killing the businesses of those who are lending the money? All right, because you might say, no, as government, no, let's lower the interest rates. But the banks may not be willing, they may lower the interest rates, but they may not be willing to give the youths the money because it may not be business effective for them. So these are all the other factors that you need to consider that could influence the impact that you would want to see in your project. How is the mode of operation? Alignment of intended impacts to needs. How is it aligned? Is this project is it a needs based project, or is it just a project because I want to, a want to project? Let me explain more further on this. Somebody who needs this project to run is somebody who has seen that, okay, in this community people are poor, so they need to have at least 10 at least $1 a day to survive. Okay, but now somebody who wants a project is somebody who is saying, no, actually what we want is to have people making $50,000 a day, just as an example. So the issue is, fine, that is perfect, we can welcome that, but is it realistic? You see, why don't we first work on tackling the needs of the people before we start setting goals that may look unrealistic. All right, I hope you're not tired. You can, if you've been following this video from start to finish, well and good, but remember there are timestamps in the description. Please utilize those so that you don't get bored. So now an impact evaluation can be undertaken by different people. You can do it yourselves actually, but it's not ideal because of biasness. So you can involve an external evaluator to do this. Okay? And when you have an external evaluator, he will definitely come up with an evaluation team that he can use to do this evaluation. Okay? So that is the issue. So I talked about internally it can be done, but this should obviously be a unit in the who are involved, who are objective enough to get this evaluation undertaken. Okay? So it can be done internally as well. But what is also ideal, and this is what I've seen in my past 10 years of practicing M&D, you can actually have a combined team of internal and external evaluators. All right, so you can combine efforts. And the reason why this is necessary is that you complement each other. External evaluators will get more information from you, the internal evaluators, and then when they're able to satisfy themselves and get a better understanding of the project, they can come up with better conclusions. So, friends, I'm sure you saw that notification. My battery is running low. So just give me a few minutes to charge the laptop and then we'll continue on with this training. Okay? Thanks for your patience. Hi guys, welcome back. And sorry about that. My power went low, but we're back in action and now let us continue. So we're talking about who should conduct impact evaluation. You have three options. You can do it with an external consultant, or you can do it with someone who's internal, all right? But the most reliable way to conduct an impact evaluation is to have a combination of the two. You've got both the internal and external evaluators. Okay, so the size of the impact evaluation study, much of it will depend on the following factors. And as you can see in this image, first of all, you have to understand whether you actually have the resources available. So when we say resources, we're not just talking about money here. We're talking about manpower. We're talking about time. We're talking about other resources, that can help undertake this activity. It could be even the materials. Do we have the adequate information to do this? The adequate equipment to do this, okay? But it's mainly to do with money. And you see, a lot of times, in my experience, people will say that the reason why they can't do a study of such big magnitude is because of lack of funds. But you see, the cost shouldn't be always an excuse, because at the planning stage of every project, this has to be budgeted. And if you're complaining about inflation, you need to factor in inflation at planning. And that is why it's always good to involve those who are well experienced in designing or developing a budget. So the next part is also the nature of the intervention. So what is the project intervention actually? What is its nature? Is it, I've always talked about that, projects are different. There are so many different projects around the world. You've got road construction projects, you've got buildings, and also the ones which I'm sure you're most familiar with are the projects where people are implementing activities in order to bring change in a community. So we're talking about reduction in poverty, improvement in the livelihoods of people, and also incomes. So if we are going to do a project, let's say if we're going to do an evaluation of a road construction project or even a building, that has been constructed, you want to evaluate whether it is indeed what it should be. Okay, I bet you I bet you even $1 million. Of course, I don't have that money, but I bet you that that project, which is evaluating a road construction or a building, is way expensive than a project that is humanitarian in nature. Okay, and the reason is simple because these projects that deal with engineers, experts, things like that, they are usually costly, and you would expect that the even the design will be different. The evaluation design will be different because it's simply a different dimension altogether. Then you also need to look at the purpose of the evaluation. So we talked about different evaluations that are present. You've got the summative, the formative evaluations. So depending on which kind of evaluation you're going to be doing, that's really going to affect the design. Because if you're going to do an evaluation that is meant to measure processes, then even your tools will be different because those tools must be tailor-made to measure processes and not the outcomes or impacts per se, but it's supposed to measure the processes. Okay, let's go further. So when we talk of the evaluation design, I bet you've come across this. If you haven't, you shouldn't feel confused or anything. Don't feel like you've missed anything. This is more familiar to those who have done research methodology, perhaps at the university, at the college, they did a bit of that. I did that. I've been doing it all my life. I've been doing research all my life, so I tend to understand these things. So I wouldn't want to spend much time on this slide, but except just to tell you that there are different types of evaluation design. So you've got the randomized or true experiment, or you've got the quasi-experiment and non-experiment, okay? So if you are going to do random assignment, then that's a randomized or true experiment. But if you are not going to do that, is there a control group or multiple measures? If you are not, then you have to go the quasi-experiment route. If yes, and if no, it's the non-experiment routes, okay? So in my course, the impact evaluation course, which I'm running on Udemy, it talks in depth about this. And like I said earlier on, I would like you to enroll in that course. You're going to derive so much benefit. Sometimes I wish somebody taught me these things way before, but I had to learn it the hard way. It took me 10 years to learn these things. And it's such a privilege and honor when you have these things simplified for you. Okay, so now, what are some of the considerations when you are trying to determine the quality of your impact evaluation? Okay, so now there's one thing I need to tell you about quality, guys. Quality is can be subjective, all right? Because when I say subjective, I'm saying that sometimes what is quality to me may not be a quality intervention to somebody else, all right? Because it can be subjective. Somebody may say, okay, this is of high quality. Another person may say, no, it's not the quality I'm looking for. But in order to make this objective, there must be standards. And these are the standards which you need to remember in order to assess whether the impact evaluation is of high quality. So now we are going to start by talking about the utility. Okay, so now the results of the evaluation must be useful to those who require the information. So this is very, very important. I've talked about this to so many people. Okay, on my YouTube channel, there have been over 300,000 views on my videos, and I am pretty sure people know that I've talked about this. You see, guys, it's really important to ensure that whenever you're doing M&E or evaluations, they must be responding to the project objectives. Oftentimes, I've seen consultants produce a very lengthy report, very huge document. When you read through the document, you actually feel like it's not really responding to the project entirely. You have to make sure that the project, the evaluation report, is responding to the project. And how are you going to do this? It's only by making sure that all the key performance indicators in the project have been reported on. And I've always talked about this. It's really important because if you start reporting things which have no use to anybody, it's just a wasted effort, and it is so unfortunate, guys. Then secondly, a quality impact evaluation study ensures that the findings are reported comprehensively, clearly, and fairly. So what this is saying is that, and this is also something I've talked about a lot, when we are writing our reports, let's avoid talking too much. All right, we need to make sure we just go straight to the point. If we need to elaborate, let us elaborate when it's necessary. It's really important that these evaluation findings don't leave people guessing, okay? Because we want to, whenever we report something, it should be clear, it should be conclusive, and then people should know that, okay, this is what the report is saying. But if they read that report and they have question marks, then it hasn't been accurate. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. Ethics is another important thing, all right? Evaluations sometimes can be sensitive, especially if you're reporting negative things. And it's just the nature of life. We don't want to be criticized. Nobody likes criticism. If there's anyone who welcomes criticism, then that person is quite humble, because a lot of times we don't like to be criticized. And it's even worse if you are somebody who is well learned, educated. If somebody lower criticizes you, you just get upset. So now the point is that we want to protect the people that are giving us this information, all right? If, for instance, yes, you go into a community and you interview people, you don't want to say that, okay, this particular person said this about this. There should be some confidentiality, and you need to assure the respondents that all the information will be confidential and will be used only to build the project. Okay. Then when we talk of ethics, we also need to make sure that as we are doing the findings, as we are reporting the findings, we are reporting the true picture. All right. We shouldn't try to sugarcoat things or make things look good. Ideally, that's how it should be, because even if you are being paid to do the evaluation, negatives are kind of good because they help improve on a failing system. So there should be a way in which, even if it's negative, you can report it in a more diplomatic manner. Okay, so that even if it's negative, people tend to appreciate that indeed this is a problem which should be addressed. Another thing is we need to look at, you see, when we talk of practicality, we need to take into account the available resources and when the results are needed to inform decisions. So what this is telling us is that it is very important when you're actually doing these impact studies to work according to schedule. And then most importantly is that we should bear in mind that ultimately this information is going to be used for decision making. So make sure that you are being practical as you do this impact evaluation, and even the recommendations you make in your report are clear and concise, such that even the decision makers know that, okay, these recommendations we're being given are actually practical. We can work with this. We can work with these findings and try to make it better. Another thing is that accountability is crucial. Okay, I talked about this in the preceding. So we want to make sure that there is indeed accountability for these results. Okay, we should take responsibility for whatever outcome that takes place as a result of the project. Okay, we should be held accountable. So also cardinal is that the data that was used in drawing conclusions should be transparent. Information should be transparent. It shouldn't be hidden to anybody. Everybody should know exactly what the findings were. Sugarcoating is not good at all, especially on sensitive issues. We need to be clear and concise. We need to make sure the truth is out there. Okay, so I really hope you enjoyed this short impact evaluation training. I want to get you back to the course I'm running on Udemy. It's called Impact Evaluation, okay? And the link is in the description. I'm running a promotion. I have a special course code which I want you to use when enrolling for this course. So please make sure you use it. You'll get a discounted price. This course has already received very positive reviews, and I want you to share. I want this knowledge to be shared with you because, like I earlier mentioned, I didn't have this opportunity as you do. So please enroll for this course and derive the maximum benefit from it. Don't forget to download the ebooks as well. Well, thank you. Until we meet again, I've been your host, Coach Alexander, and see you on the other side. Bye.